There we have some delicious flowering shoots from the broadleaf plantain. The idea of foraging foods generally conjures up ideas in people's heads of roaming around in the forest looking for mushrooms and various berries and things like that. However, that does not need to be the case. You can probably walk out into your front or backyard and find some pretty useful plants. Let's have a look at broadleaf plantain. Here we have a decent sized patch of broadleaf plantain. Large oval shaped leaves. The veins run from the base of the stem up to the edges of the leaf. Most people know this plant as a medicinal plant. It's useful for treating bug bites, burns, rashes, zits, things like that. However, you can eat the whole plant. The leaves, when they're this old, are quite fibrous. They're not really that good. Smaller, more tender leaves are what you would want to eat. But what I want to focus on are the flowering shoots. These are very, very tasty. You could almost look at them as tasting like something between a fiddlehead and an asparagus. They go through stages, and you're best off to harvest the small, tender shoots of the plant. As they begin to mature and put out seeds, they become somewhat bitter and quite tough. So we here tend to avoid these ones that are throwing out seeds. So let's put our focus on these smaller, new, tender shoots that will just pop off very easily, just like that. Broadleaf plantain grows in such dense population that it really does not take long at all to harvest enough of these to make either a full meal or just a side dish. Just kind of move around through the patches that you find. And when you pick these shoots, they will also start to throw off new shoots because the plant wants to flower, it wants to reproduce, create seed. Native North Americans referred to this plant as white man's feet because everywhere we went, this plant would eventually show up because of how quickly it spreads. And even the toughest growing conditions. This is all clay, sand, rock. Not the most ideal conditions for most plants. And you can see a lot of these plants are quite far along. We have been harvesting these regularly. It's quite easy to tell which ones are tender enough to eat. You can see I'm putting a lot of pressure on these and they're just not breaking. However, these couple right here, they'll just pop right off just like that. Very, very easily. Cooking up the flowering shoots of the plantain is really quite simple. So, we have a small amount of plantain shoots. Chopped garlic, some salt, pepper, and just a tiny drop of olive oil. I'm going to cook it up on the fire in a little cast iron pan. Start with the garlic, salt, pepper, oil mixture. once that starts to bubble a little bit, add the plantain in. Stir. You can eat these raw. I just find a quick little pan fry with some garlic and salt and pepper really helps to bring out the flavor. Again, they're kind of like a combination in flavor of fiddleheads from the ostrich fern and your regular asparagus. Very tasty. And after just a couple minutes on the fire, there we have some delicious flowering shoots from the broadleaf plantain. Love these things. They're so good for you too. Delicious. So that's just one of the many plants that you can probably find in your front or backyard. You don't have to be roaming around in the middle of nowhere, out in the wilderness, to forage tasty, healthy foods.